Hey YouTube, Freedom for Kaz here. Hey everyone, I came across a interesting magazine. I found a Time magazine issued June 21st, 2010, and it goes into talking about the oil spill, and actually right on the cover here, it says how to clean up the mess. Now, I went through and I read the article, and it kind of covers several viewpoints, and when you get to the article, this is the opening article here. It shows boom laying around and not being used properly, but we already know that that's part of the problem, because they're not booming properly, and as you see from the picture, it just looks like a whole bunch of snakes just kind of piled all together like you would see in some Indiana Jones movie. But let's get into the article here. As I said, I went through and I read some of the articles, and they have some good pictures in here. Nice oily animals, probably gonna die. We got one pelican, one turtle, one fish. Looks like one seagull. Totally covered in oil. But the one thing that really kind of sticks out is the fact that Admiral Thad Allen, who is the Admiral for the Coast Guard, said this: "It's a long campaign and we're going to be dealing with this for the foreseeable future." Now, what does he mean by foreseeable future? We've already talked about the relief wells in August, and Bill Clinton has already hinted on how those aren't going to work. I did a previous video about that, and he had some underlying statements that if you could really see into that, he already said that the relief well isn't going to work for one or two reasons. One reason is that it wasn't going to relieve the well enough, that because there's so much pressure down there, it would just make the problem worse. Or the other reason is they were worried about that if they did do the relief wells, the ground not being stable enough, it could collapse the well. Now, reading on, getting back to this article, reading on, it's funny how this article points out, the article talks about how it's going to last through the winter months, okay? And that is in this article, and it clearly states, it says that everything that we're doing right now isn't pointing towards a solution. Everything we're doing right now is preventative. Preventative on the surface and preventative to the animals. And again, if you go through this whole article, and it's quite a few pages long, there's not one word about a solution. There's a lot of finger pointing. There's a lot of who is to blame. And speaking about who is to blame, they put a list of 12 people together, okay? They put a list of 12 people together as to who the people are to blame for this. Now, as I've always been saying, you know, it's about the blame and the who and the why and the how, but it has never been about a solution. And that's what kills me. I can't believe how many Americans are still asleep on this. Now, I added this link into one of my previous videos, and these are all the oil wells that are in the Gulf, okay? And then on this page here, it kind of tells you who owns those wells, okay? Now, in a previous video, I already had this link in there. It escapes me right now as to what video it was in, but it was in a video. I do remember that. Now, here is what they've done in their eyes, what they've done. Okay, now this is kind of a graph how it says, all right, This is what's going on, and this is kind of the timetable as to what they've used and how they've used it. Now, as you can see, the bubble graph gets larger and larger and larger. Day 51, which is June 9th, they used 1,143 gallons of dispersants. It says 909 miles of boom. 32% of the fishing areas have been closed. They've employed 24,000 people. And they've used 3,500 vessels. Here's my thing. The millions of gallons of dispersant, we already know, is 4 times more toxic than the oil itself. 909 miles of boom. That's not even enough to cover the coastline from Texas to Florida. Okay? 3,500 vessels. Are they including personal vessels like fishing boats and things like that? Because they shouldn't be. Because if someone is taking it upon themselves to help clean this, that person shouldn't be counted, because the government and BP should be the one who is spearheading all of this. It says 32% of all fishing areas closed. Well, by now I'm sure it's at least 50%, if not all of them. And here's the one thing that I saved for last. 24,000 people helping. I'd like to know, where are they getting these 24,000 people at? It amazes me that that number is that high. It doesn't seem like it would be that high. They seem to be dragging their feet on getting people. Unless when the president's there, when they have all the extras come in, then it could be 24,000 people. But other than that, I just don't understand. Now, there's one thing I want to point out here. Earlier in the article, it kind of gives what happened, and it says the indictment. It's a chapter called The Indictment, and it says very simply, after studying more than 600 disasters over more than 50 years, Professor Robert B. has developed a unified theory of catastrophe. This theory is A plus B equals C. A is what B calls natural hazards, the unavoidable physical factors like the unforgiving vacuum and the great distances that come with working in outer space. So, in other words, what he's saying is that the oil is one of these natural disasters, or a natural hazard, and that's one problem. B is in the human factors, the sin of greed, arrogance, laziness, and the indifference with corporations, governments, and people that are exhibited far too often, which means is that they can't agree on how they want to fix this, and they can't agree on how to solve this. So this is what we have. We have this problem. Nobody wants to fix it. It's like this, okay? It's like having your son or your daughter spilling a 2-liter on the kitchen table, a brand new 2-liter of pop. Spills it on the kitchen table. And as it's flowing onto the kitchen table, it's spilling onto the floor. Well, your son or your daughter, who is, let's say, 3 or 4, can't figure out why it keeps flowing onto the floor, but they know that they got to get the mess off the floor. So the first thing they do is start cleaning up the floor, let alone stopping the flow of the soda that's flowing onto the floor. It's exactly what we have here, people. 4- and 6-year-olds trying to solve this problem. Folks, have a good day.